minutes when you have to drive up that way. And there's another tree. And I keep like turning it. If another car rides,
Everyone, please take a seat. We're gonna get the meeting started. Here's my gavel.
Oh dear. You are good. It is going to your head, isn't it?
All right, we have people online that are joining us. We want to get started.
I'm not back at the car. What do you do?
Yeah.
If you turn down the other way.
So, good evening, everyone, and welcome to our monthly meeting with the North Jersey Astronomical Group.
I think it did.
I want to welcome everyone.
Yeah.
Tonight's guest speaker is our very own Dr. Mary Lee. Who's going to be who's going to be presenting some history about the statue, the Ophiuchus sculpture that's in front of the Cells building. So I'm really excited to hear about this because I myself am not familiar with the history behind it. So with that, with the conclusion of the presentation, I'm going to ask that our online members stay with us for the business portion of our meeting. So with that, Dr. West, I'll bring up the presentation to get you started.
Okay.
Second. Steve, we still have it running. Yeah.
Good. All right. So I have a presentation about the sculpture out in front of this building, not far from.
That's a thought effect.
When we have public telescope nights, and I think it's one of the most wonderful things I've ever been hooked up with. It's just really, really cool thing. So I want to tell you a little bit about the sculpture and some of the things that went on behind it. And I think, so do we have a next, please? There we go. Okay. So this is the sculpture. This is when it was in a different location. It was in front of the library rather than in front of the Cells building, but it looks pretty much the same. It was designed and gotten by Mac Adams, 1987-88. And we are very honored that Mac has come to visit us. So raise your hand. This one over here. That's the artist.
Do you want the lights in?
Yes, make them dimmer. So he'd gotten a grant for, I believe it was $25,000. Is that what it was? Something like that?
No, I can't remember. But
Yeah, I can't remember either. But it's something about that. And the purpose was to beautify the campus, and it was supposed to go in front of the library, which was the center of the campus at that time. All right, so much later, so within the last 10 years or so, it was moved from the library where they were renovating stuff in front of the library, and they moved it here in front of the Cells building. Okay, next. So there we are some years ago. So I want another picture tonight of us. Because I don't know about you, but I've certainly aged since that time. Okay, next. So I have several parts to this talk. I want to tell you about the old, ancient Ophiuchus myth, which we got entangled with. Then the Asclepius myth, which is related to it, and is a version of it. Nobody's sure which version came first. The Middle East is full of too many different tribes, and they borrow from each other and change the names. Then I want to tell you about Ophiuchus, the constellation, because that's one of the things that, of course, interests us as amateur astronomers. And then we want to talk about the sculpture, how we designed it, how it was constructed. Then I have some pictures of students trying to figure it out and enjoying what they see. Next. So the Ophiuchus myth, the one on which we based this sculpture, is a very classic coming of age story. There are many versions of this in almost any culture you want to come to, and this is the one from Babylonian or Mesopotamian area, so the right-hand end of the Mediterranean Sea. So it's a boy. He goes on his quest journey, seeking his career in the world. So when I picture somebody who's like 16, 17 years old, basically end of high school, his parents send him out, figure out what you're going to do with yourself, right? These kids are sent off alone into the desert around their village. They're supposed to be tested by the universe or whatever, and have to have ingenuity to solve whatever problems that they're given. They have to find courage to face the wild beasts of the desert and things like that. And I think it's very much like Boy Scout Eagle Badge sort of requirements. I had a son and he did that. They don't have the same thing in Girl Scouts, but it's classic sort of thing. Or kids that go off to college and are living alone for the first time and have to make decisions. They don't know what to do. And they're not supposed to call their parents so much, as they always do. But at any rate, that sort of thing. So you think of it of a kid going off into an unknown place, which he knows is dangerous or going to have decisions that he's never made before, and he feels very uneasy about it. Of course, in my day, it was all, oh, he's running off to join the service. I don't know if you people had that sort of thing, but in the Midwest, this was called that sort of thing. Okay, next. So in this particular case, this boy, and it's important, I think, to realize we don't know his name, Sam or something like that, but we don't know his name. And I think calling him Asclepius is the wrong name because that boy had a different sort of a problem. But anyway, this boy, in going along through the desert, disturbs a large snake. And the snake comes out and attacks him. What's he going to do? Well, they start to fight. And I think it's also important in this case, neither one of them has a weapon. So he doesn't have a knife or something. He's fighting the snake barehanded. And the snake has fangs. Perhaps they're poisonous. At any rate, big, big snake. So I have brought my snake along. This one is not so dangerous. It's made of fabric, quilter. So this is my snake. So anyway, so the boy struggles with this great long snake. It is said that they fought all night, wounded each other in the hips, told each other their names finally, shouted a lot of things at each other. And at dawn, though, ends up with the boy has the snake by the throat. And so the snake is wrapping itself around, trying to make it very uncomfortable. But meanwhile, he's got the snake by the throat, so he's winning. And at that point, snake speaks to him in English or whatever language they spoke in those days in the world. And the snake says, "You don't want to hurt me. I am the snake of all knowledge." What? What? Says the boy. Huh? I have in my hand the snake of all knowledge. Woo! I have tremendous power here. What am I going to do? And snake says, "Well, you're going to let me go is what you do." No, I don't know. All right, let you go. and they talk for a while, and the snake convinces the boy that he should let him go. And then the snake will be kind and gentle and will teach him knowledge. Knowledge is a very valuable thing. Right, so they trade peace for knowledge. Boy gives him peace, the snake will give him knowledge. The snake says, "Okay, well, what kind of knowledge you want?" The kid says, "Everything." Well, no, doesn't work like that. This is kind of like Jeopardy. You have categories. You have to pick a category. Boy says, "I don't know anything about categories. What categories are possible even?" Snake says, well, there's lots of categories. He said, one of them I would suggest not choosing, and that was the knowledge of good and evil. the girl that chose that one, it didn't go well for her for that at all. Oh, yeah, I know about her. Okay, I won't choose that one. He says, what other categories are there? Snake says, well, there are many. He said, but one of the ones that I'm waiting for somebody to pick, I think is a really good one, is the knowledge of medicine, the knowledge of healing. How can you heal somebody who's sick or wounded in front of you and make them feel better? The pain will go away and their disease or whatever will be cured. He says, I think that's a useful one. I know quite a bit about it. Oh, says the boy. Well, okay then. Sure. I picked the knowledge of medicine. Good, says the snake. That's great. So let's go to medical school. So what we're going to do is we're going to walk along, the two of us, and you can walk faster than me, so I'm not going to walk. You're going to carry me like this, right? Actually, he carries him. At least in the pictures we have, the snake's always head on the side, tail on this. At any rate, so you're going to carry me along, and we're going to go from village to village. And when we get to a village, we'll say, is anybody in this village sick? And there always is somebody who's sick. And so somebody, yeah, my Aunt Susan. And they bring her out, and you say, oh yeah, she looks pretty sick. And then we both look at her, and then we step back, and the snake, will whisper in your ear, what's wrong with Susan here? And not only diagnose the problem and tell you what to look for so that you learn if anybody looks like Susan in this particular way, they have this particular disease. Then I will tell you what to do to cure her. All right, so cures in that sort of culture were of three types. And I think it's interesting. I've read some of their other myths, and they always have three different types of cures. That's all they've got. So one is dry stuff. It's plant-based. You get some leaves or roots or twigs or something, and you grind them up and you put them on the person in some specific way. And then the second one is wet cures. So that's potions. So you have some sort of liquid, either oil-based or mostly water-based. You go get berries or sometimes leaves or roots, you grind them up and you put them in the water, the solvent, and you mix it around for a while, and eventually you take the top of it and you feed it to the person in their mouth, and that's called a potion, and that makes it. And then the third one, which is really powerful, especially in the Middle East, is the words. So I will dictate to you all sorts of incantations. And this incantation, when you say this, goes for some problem in their hands. This incantation, which is different words, goes for something in their head. This one goes, and so lots and lots of these various spells to say. And somebody say them with music, and somebody sing them, or you say them again and again, and then the person will pay. So at that point, they set off. And I like to say they probably went for 4 years and called it medical school. Probably. And at that point, the boy became known to villages in the Middle East as the person who carried the snake around. So by the time we get to Greece, and the Greeks are the ones who wrote these things down, he was called Ophiuchus. That's Greek for Ophius snake, and Uchus is to carry. So he was just the snake carrier. We've lost his first name or his family name utterly. But at any rate, so at first, he carried the snake in his hand, so it's hard to walk like that. Then he carried the snake around his neck, like necklace. And he could talk to the snake. He could hold him up, and the snake would whisper in his ear. Or the snake could just pull himself up and whisper in his ear. But after a while, the snake kept getting bigger and bigger. And so eventually he came up with this technique. He had a walking stick, hiking, and he took the snake and wrapped the snake around the walking stick. And the snake held himself on, so then he would just walk along with this, and if he felt like a conversation, he holds up the walking stick and the snake whispers tears. So this is the thing that he got known for, and eventually becomes a really well-known symbol, right? Okay, so I think we've just. So, at some point, and I like to think it's probably at the time when they were near the end of the 4 years and heading back toward Snake's part of the desert, so Snake could go back to his own house. Snake taught him a final secret. Very, very powerful. And I like to think it happened like this. So I'm making up this part. I'll write this part down. So what I imagine happening is that the boy and his snake came to some village, and they're going to say, is anybody sick here? Can we learn something from these people, right? And they come in, and suddenly there's lots of screaming and shouting. And they come into the main street, and there's somebody lying on the road, and everybody still, and everybody's screaming and shouting. They go, what happened? What happened? Oh, this is the leader of the village, Chief so-and-so. And he just fell over and died. What are we going to do? He is our noble leader, he's a really good leader. What are we going to do? The snake says, let me look at him. He looks at him. I'll tell you what to do. Down on your knees. This guy, you need to pound on his chest rhythmically. And every so often you have to breathe in his mouth. Right? Do that. 1, 2, 3. And that comes back to life. Snake says, we will eventually call this CPR. It is really, really powerful stuff. Remember this one. Okay. And so the guy recovers and everybody is so happy. Instead of just giving Ophiuchus and his snake a little food or some water or maybe a little bit of money, they throw money at him. He is very much surprised and very happy. He's getting all this money. Look at this. And so eventually they leave the village, and the snake said, yes, and I will teach you the general way to raise somebody from the dead. You don't have to have died just in front of you. They could be dead a whole year, and I'll teach you how to get them back. Okay? Don't tell anybody. Okay. And they will throw money at you. Lots and lots of them. Okay. Right? So the final secret is that the snake tells him how to raise people from the dead. Okay, now we go to the next one. So Ophiuchus takes the snake back to Snake's house, burrow, whatever, and he goes along and he goes, finds a nice place. He builds a really nice house. It's a nice house with a courtyard with a fountain in it and all that. And he stays there, and that's his office, his hospital. And he becomes the world's first physician. A very noble person. He is written up in many different myths, often with different names, but they always involve snakes, and they always involve somebody who could raise them. So that becomes his career. He has the snake around a stick icon, and they call it the Ophiuchus. It's the walking stick with a snake around it, and that becomes the symbol of doctoring or healing or that sort of thing. And Ophiuchus decides he will become a specialist, and he will have people come to him, and he will no longer make house calls. You know doctors like that. Yes, we do. Anyway, when I was little, doctors came to the house. Didn't do that. Anyhow, but he was the first one who decided to do that and became a specialist. So what is his specialty?
Resurrection.
Resurrection. So he won't treat heart problems or contagious diseases or rashes or anything like that. He only treats people who are dead and are brought to him with a bag of gold. Okay? So he will have a very small clientele because he wants people who have died from a family which is rich. And the family will march along with the dead body, come into his courtyard, plop down the dead body, hand him the bag of gold, and give it to the servant to take aside, and then he'll do his things, and this always is, almost always is the incantation, and raise the person from the dead. And everybody's happy, right? Well, not everybody. But anyway, so he becomes this specialist in resurrection. Yes. Who do we think Pluto is? Oh. Huh?
It used to be a planet.
Pluto used to be a planet, yes, but it was named after a character in mythology. Just as Jupiter is still a planet, it was named after a character in mythology. So what do we know about Pluto? Kathy, do you know?
He was in the underworld.
He was in the underworld. So he's the god of the underworld. And in those societies, there was no good and bad underworld, no good or bad places. There was no heaven and hell. There was just the land of the dead. And everybody went to the same place. So you have to ask, why is Pluto annoyed? What do you think? He's losing. They're not customers. He's losing his population, right? But, thinks I, he shouldn't get all that upset, really, because it's a very small number of people any year, right? Thousands of people die every year, and what, 2 of them come back upstairs? Because they have to be people who are loved by their family and are very, very rich. Okay? There aren't that many really, really rich families, and those are the only ones that would come back. But then I thought, well, no, let's think about the very rich. Not like the rest of us. At any rate, the very, very rich have interesting hobbies or pastimes. They can play golf, play tennis. They know how to play bridge, how to gamble, horses. They raise horses. They have very elite tastes. And now Pluto, he's the head of the underworld. He also has taste, and he likes good food and good wine, and he likes to play cards, and he likes to raise horses. Who knows, camels, whatever they do. And so the people who come to his realm that are the very rich, they have the same sort of taste as he does, and they become his personal friends. 20,000 farmers over here, I don't care, but these 5 people over here are my friends, because they know how to play bridge. You know, I can see that. I hope other people could feel that as well, because I could see Pluto getting annoyed at this character up here, Ophiuchus, who's raising a few dead a year, because those are the ones that I like to pal around. Okay, so Pluto gets annoyed and asks his brother, "You take care of this problem for me." Now, next question is, who is Pluto's brother? Actually, there's 2 brothers. 3 brothers rule the universe. Who are they? Jupiter is one of them. What does Jupiter rule? Who's the 3rd brother? Let's get that. Neptune. So Neptune rules the sea. Pluto rules the lower world, and Jupiter rules the land. So these 3 brothers rule everything. That's all you got, right? So Jupiter says, okay, he has a house on the land, I'll take care of it. Where is it? It's over there somewhere. I think it's kind of over there behind Persephone. And describes sort of what it is. So Jupiter says, well, I'll have to check it out. Now, something interesting, I think, in those days, gods had powers, but they didn't have all powers. So Jupiter could not see through walls. And Ophiuchus stayed inside all the time, almost. So he didn't know if he was really at home even. Then comes final patient. The family comes bringing a dead body, they plop down, bag of gold, gives to the servant, takes it away. And Ophiuchus says, all righty then. Let me do this guy for you, right? He starts with the incantation. He comes out into the courtyard to do that. And Jupiter says, there he is. I see him now. Thunderbolt, whacko, kills him dead, takes Ophiuchus and flings him up in the sky. That'll take care of him. Pluto, you happy now? Yeah, I'm happy. That's a good one, right? But then Emily is very, very upset. They paid the money but did not get the service. They gave him a bag of gold, and now this guy's gone, and nothing's happened. Now he's still there dead. So they scream and cry and wail and carry on. And it's not fair, you know, we paid and everything. Jupiter says, oh, you're right. Sorry about that. Can't do anything about that. No, it's not fair. Finally, Jupiter says, oh, all right, tell you what. I will take your dead body and I will fling it up in the sky and make it a constellation. And then you could see him half the year. Half the year is better than nothing. The best you're going to get. And the family says, oh, okay. And they go away. So now we have two new constellations, doctor and the patient. Jupiter thinks about this for a while. Thinks, better do this carefully. I don't want them to ever get together and finish the act which was started. The incantation had been started. Okay, he says, tell you what, I will put them opposite each other on the sky. So that one comes up, the other goes down. Then the other goes up, the one goes down. They will never see each other. So that they can't finish the incantation and they're stuck forever. Okay? Doesn't that sound like a good solution? Jupiter was very smart, or at least the people who wrote these stories were very smart and thought about this. All right, so next. So one of the things that came from this particular story is the caduceus, the stick, walking stick with snake. It became the symbol of physicians, veterinarians, even, and EMTs. So here's several emblems that I picked off the backs of trucks and whatnot. And the one with the V in it is for a veterinary group. I don't know what particularly is going on with the one on the far right, the yellowish one. Do you see what the problem is there?
Wait.
There's two snakes. He only ever but has one snake. There's only one snake of all knowledge. And this is two snakes. So I don't know about that one, but I found that out. But anyway, I think it's interesting, and people's interpretation of this is somewhat different, but it's always, almost always one snake and a snake. Next. This one, the one on the left, there's Time Magazine, about 20 years ago. And they're talking about DNA, and somebody did a nice job of making part of the DNA into us. Thought that was good. And then there are quite a few sculptures from ancient Greece and Rome, where there's somebody hero looking like with a stick with a snake around. Here's a couple more of them. So some are sculptures in marble, some are, the one on the left is carved in wood. You can see it's quite a large snake, not a little garter snake. It's a big because he knows all the water. Next. The other one, which is fairly similar but not the same, is Asclepius. This one involves Apollo. Do we have anything in the space program named for him? So what did the Apollo program do? Mark, go to the moon, right? Apollo had a twin sister, her name, Artemis. What is she going to do? Go to the moon. So people in NASA are times up on their mythologies. Anyway, so Apollo was handsome and charming and everything. and took many lovers. One of them was called Coronis, which sometimes appears with a K and sometimes with a C, but at any rate, Coronis. Lovely, lovely girl. She was a princess of one of the islands. But after she was a lover for him for a while, she found a local boy, fell in love with him. And Apollo got all upset. Why would she leave him for this mortal person? That's really bad. So he killed her. Okay. Well, God's had that sort of prerogative. At any rate, and I thought it was sort of interesting that Apollo had a pet bird, a raven. And ravens in those days were white and had fluffy feathers and were shiny and very beautiful. And the raven would often pass on gossip or information. He'd go out, fly around, come back, tell his master what he heard. He told him about this. He'd seen this girl with this boy and it wasn't wanted. And so, as often happens with these ancient, the god gets so upset. First, he kills somebody, and then he messes with the messenger. So he his favorite pet, the raven, and turned her from white to black, which is why, oh dearly beloved, all the ravens are black nowadays. Okay, explains that bit of nature. Any rate, so he takes the dead body, or he has his servants take the dead body, put it on a funeral pyre, light the fire, and as she's lying there, he goes, "Oh my God, she's pregnant! Oh, that's my baby! Oh!" So he rips her up and takes the baby out, and the baby was nearly ready to be born anyway, so it's okay. Really? Okay. He names the baby Aesculapius, and says, "I'm not going to raise this baby without a mother." So he takes it off to Chiron, the centaur, who is a kindly sort of uncle to everybody in the mythology world. Chiron knew a lot of stuff. He was very gentle with children. He was a good teacher. And a great number of princelings, young royal-born kids, were sent to Chiron, who had a boarding school. And he would take care of them till they were adult age, and he would teach them whatever skills they had. All right. So Chiron, the centaur. He knew a lot about healing and about medicine himself. So he was the first centaur of disease control, and taught this particular child a lot about medicine, because that's what he seemed to be interested in. He was very good at it. And Aesculapius became a good doctor. Eventually, he did research and he learned more than Chiron knew, and so became a really good doctor, cured a lot of people in the ancient world. And at one point, late in his career, didn't know it was late, but it was late in his career, he was given a whole lot of money to bring back Hippolytus from the dead. And I don't know what that story is about, but you can look that up on your own. Somebody who was kind of famous. He raised him from the dead. At this point, Zeus got very upset that any mortal could do anything with the dead. Or not supposed to do it, so he did it openly. And so Zeus killed him, and that was for his arrogance of playing with the dead. So we have some things that are similar there to the Ophiuchus story, but not quite. Chiron is now somehow listening. At any rate, so one more thing about Aesculapius. People made temples to him in various towns and villages. The temples were where you could come if you were ill. And the procedure was they had snakes in all these temples. You petted the snakes for a while, and you gave some money, and then you fell asleep in a certain place, and you dreamed about what your potion should be, or your medical plant-based poultice. And when you woke up, you went and did it yourself, and you always got it. There was healing and snakes, as well as a women teacher. Now, too. Okay. So now we can move on to the constellation Ophiuchus. I always thought it was one of the weirdest spellings constellations. Any rate, this one is in the summer sky. It's in the south. It's above Scorpius. So, Omar, can you show us on the left-hand drawing there, the one with the blue bits on it? A little bit of Scorpius is coming up from the bottom. Show us where Scorpius is.
Left hand, you said? Last, lower. Oh, right. There we go.
Can you make the cursor show up?
No.
There you go.
There we go.
Yeah, that's a-
Great. So that star there is called Antares. And it is part of the Scorpion, or something like that. And then he's got one of his little stars there. And then Ophiuchus is always drawn as sort of a blob circle with a curly line going across it, and that's the snake. So this is when he's holding the snake in both hands, walking along with him. And it's important to notice at this point that there is one star, which means it's one of his legs, which heads downwards toward the left, past Antares. You see that? It involves, I don't know what Greek letter that is. So no, that's in Scorpius. We want to go back up to Ophiuchus.
Oh.
A green leg that comes down just from down there. Yes, that's the leg. So I want you to notice that the leg comes as far down as Antares. What does Antares mean? Kevin, you know?
Not Mars.
Not Mars.
Rival, yeah.
Rival of
Yeah.
Mars. One rival of Mars, kind of like Mars, but not. Don't be confused, right? Why would somebody ever name a star not Mars?
Well, Mars, the planet, is also red, and it moves, and the brightness and the color rivals it every 2 years or so. Mars gets bright.
Exactly right. So it means that this star Antares looks like Mars and is easily fooled, can be easily fooled. So it's a reddish star, and Mars goes right by it. So it's in the roadway where Mars goes. Okay, so on the right-hand side, I got another picture of Ophiuchus there. Now you can see him as a real person, and the snake is, in this case, a green snake, and he's holding it, goes across his body. And then below him, what color is Scorpius in this picture? Red. And look at the shape of him. What kind of a creature is that? That's not a scorpion, that's a lobster.
It looks like dinner.
It's dinner, right? It's already been cooked. So this is from one of those upper European types who had never seen a scorpion. And described it to him as, oh yeah, it's kind of like a lobster. Okay, we'll make it a lobster. At any rate, it's important for us to realize at this point that Ophiuchus and the scorpion are right close to each other. Their feet are sort of next. So I found some other pictures of Scorpius in the sky, Ophiuchus in the sky. And I think it's interesting, in fact, it is unique, that the serpent is divided in half. So there's the half that's got the head on it and the half that's got the tail on it. And they are considered two different constellations in some books. In others, they are considered a single constellation. The one's called Serpens Cauda, the other is Serpens Kepler. Right? Which is which? Does anybody know any Latin? Yeah, Jeff.
Foot would be the head.
Yeah, foot is the head. How do you know that?
No Kappa, no Italian.
Italian. Or another way to remember it is if you sing or play music, sometimes when you go through a piece, it says coda, C-O-D-A, which means go back and play the whole thing again because there's a different ending. So coda means ending. And so serpent's coated there at the tail end. Tail end of the snake. So in these drawings, the head looks to be off to the right, so that's the caput part of the serpent. Tail's off to the left, and that's serpent cauda. All right? Strange. Next. This is the little plaque of stone that's in the grass outside in front of the building here, right by the sculpture. And it says Ophiuchus is the 13th constellation of the zodiac. Good heavens, what does that mean? How many are there normally? 12. And this little sign says there's 13. We have to think of what that means. We have to think what zodiac. But you know what zodiac? Ed, do you know? You know that there's 12 of them, right?
Yes.
Yes, there are 12 of them. And Kevin?
Circle, man.
It's the circle of animals. Zoo and zodiac are the same root. So it's the zoo up there, and it's a circle of zoo animals. So it's like a parade or a circus parade. There's the elephants, and there's the giraffes. No, they're different than that. They're lions, other things, and bulls. But anyway, so zodiac is the circle of the animals. Well, not all the zodiac constellations are animals, right? Well, a scorpion is an animal. But how about Aquarius? Is that an animal? Well, not really. And how about Libra? Not even alive. So, animal. But anyway, why are these 12 or 13 constellations grouped together? What do they have in common that the others don't? While we're at it, how many constellations are there in total in the sky? Hint. Same number as keys on a classical piano. 88. There's 88 constellations. 12 of them, or maybe 13, are special in some way. Well, in what way are they special? Ecliptic. Full sense. Ecliptic because why?
It's so close.
You're so close. The circle of animals has a line running down its middle called the ecliptic. All right, what can possibly happen on an ecliptic can't happen anywhere else?
Couple letters.
Eclipse.
An eclipse. An ecliptic is the place, only the place where eclipses can happen. Right, and people for thousands and thousands of years have noticed eclipses to be something very special, a little scary, especially if you're a farmer, right? And you know, a year ago, exactly a year ago, we were watching a really wonderful total solar eclipse. Weren't we, Mark?
Yeah, that was
That was
Good day.
cool. Yeah, we were
a good
together.
day.
But anyway, so if you have an eclipse, that means two particular objects are somewhere on that line at that point together. What are the two objects? What it takes to make an eclipse? Sun.
Sun and moon.
Very good. Sun and moon. Exactly right. So the ecliptic is in fact defined to be the path on which the sun occurs. And sometimes the moon comes too. But the sun is the important one. So the plane of our orbit around the solar system is on this one. Okay, next. Here's a map of the whole sky in which we have north at the top and south at the bottom, but not all the way to the poles quite. And the equator is the blue line down the middle. And the red line, the little swoopy red line, is the ecliptic. And so the sun always follows that red line, going around winter to summer, so forth. All right. So we're going to come back to that in a minute, where we're going to think about the words opposite and the words zodiac. First of all, before we move on, that red line has a certain thickness, but the zodiac would be somewhat thicker than that, so sort of a belt. that goes around, but not exactly at the middle, but tilted around the middle. And that's the only place you can find the sun. And the sun is used for calendar purposes. The zodiac is a big calendar. And that's very important to the ancient world. Next. All right, so here's a close-up of the part of the summer sky that we can see. And I thought this diagram was interesting because they had put in here certain asterisms as well as constellations, little pieces of things, and things that you could notice. So on the upper left there, there's a square with some lines sticking out from it. What is that the square of? Find the square with the cursor. Constellation is that square. Pegasus. Yeah, the great square of Pegasus. At this point, he's upside down. He's got back feet, front feet, and a head and neck. Down below. So that's the great square of Pegasus. Then to his right, there's a red triangle, which goes into 3 constellations. One of them is the Northern Cross, which also has another name. There, that one right there. At any rate, that's the summer triangle. And those constellations are quite obvious in the summer sky. And then down below them, there's another red thing that looks like a teapot. Multiple groups of people around the world call them. You seem to see that. That's what's doing. Others are different things. Certain, particularly birds, turn out to be all sorts of different things in different groups. Blob with 2 things coming out. But like Pegasus here, the one on the upper left, I think that does look like a horse.
Yes.
I think the neck and head are just right for the size of the body, and the front legs and back legs go off in the right sort of way. And I think it's also important to notice for children's toys, there are no wings. This horse flies magically. He doesn't have wings. He just flies through the air, right? In all little kids' stories, they always have little wings. Anyway.
We're back on.
We're back online. Okay, so we have Sagittarius, the teapot, and then just to its right is Scorpius, the scorpion, and circled is Antares, the rival of Mars, which is its heart. And then above the 2 of them is the blob with the line running through it, and that's Ophiuchus. The stars are all fairly faint, so not particularly noticeable in New Jersey. But that's the constellation we're concerned with tonight. All right, and it's important that that leg comes down between the teapot and the scorpion. Okay? Now, we have here the zodiac, ecliptic, the place where the sun goes. And so if we could figure out where that is, we'll make a big swoop. So from Sagittarius to Scorpius, we go on to Libra and Virgo. Virgo also has a circle in it. And then you come over here, you got Capricornus, Aries and Pisces, and that's the swoop. So it's kind of a U shape there. Everybody imagine that? Can you do that for us? Or start lower than that.
Ecliptic, ecliptic.
Ecliptic is not drawn on this one. We'll
Yeah,
go
but you
back
know
and
where it
see.
is, right?
Right?
Yeah,
And then
on the right to
ecliptic is
there.
a single line, but the zodiac is 8 degrees on either side of it. So it's a big swath that goes across there. And if it takes in Scorpius and Sagittarius, it also takes in the foot of Ophiuchus. So the path of the sun does pass from Scorpius to Ophiuchus to Sagittarius in parts of the year. And therefore, it is part of the zodiac. It is the place where the sun goes. Right? And it's the only one other than the original 12. You get a little widgy bit, but it goes across there. So can we go back now? So here we are back at the big map of the whole sky. And you can see the arc there on the bottom. And Scorpius is right there. And above it is Ophiuchus, the sort of blob with the line going across it. At the little foot, which comes down and goes through the the red line. All right. So it is part of the zodiac. But it makes 13, and 13 is a bit bad. All right. Then we need to think who was the last patient of the doctor, Ophiuchus. So Ophiuchus is here, halfway across is here. Sort of above the word X and equinox and before C for celestial, in here. Who is there? You look up here by where there's a dark line that says summer solstice.
You're right.
Do you see Gemini? Two things right here, parallel to the black line. Right, and next to Gemini is Taurus the bull. That's that one over there. Hanging beneath them, great hunter. What's his name? Last patient from Ophiuchus the doctor.
Orion.
Orion, and that's why he's in the sky. And Orion and Ophiuchus are opposite to each other. When one comes up, the other goes down. Never shall the incantation be finished. Next. Next. All right, so now we need to ask, why is 13 an unlucky number? And so the ancient world says, yeah, we know it, but we're going to disregard it. It's only a whizzly 1 foot. Yeah, 12 it is, 12. 12 it is. All right. The lunar cycle is 29.5 days from full moon to full moon. And that was what the hunter-gatherer of our ancestors used to make a calendar. Meet you back here the next full moon. Oh, yeah, let's do that. Right? But once you settle down and do farming, you cannot use that calendar. You must use a solar calendar. The solar cycle is 365.2 days. All right. How many months are there per year? Well, 365 divided by 29 is 12. Okay. Next. So we're next going to talk about the sculpture itself. It is a shadow sculpture. It is active from local noon, plus or minus 5 minutes either side. Why noon? Because it's easy for me to survey it. Noon is easy to find. If you go put something on the ground, I can tell you where noon is. And sometimes that's about all. That's why. So it has an armature, has three legs. One leg is south, that one in the middle, and the other two are east and west. And you find the middle where you want to put this thing. You survey the east-west line, you survey the north-south line. Put markers where they're going to put the footings. They're all set. So I wanted to tell you about my troubles the first time, and I want to find out if you had any troubles the second time. First time, it was when it was down by the library. So I went out on this little grassy knoll the day beforehand, and I surveyed where the 3 footings would go, and a can of sprayed red paint, sprayed, quite obvious, red marks on the grass, went home. Next day, the people with the digger and the concrete are going to come. So I come back, they had mowed the lawn. They never mowed the lawn. They had mowed the lawn that morning, and my red spots were gone. So I ran inside and I got a trowel, my can of red paint, resurveyed it, dug a hole for each of them, and spray painted the inside of the hole red. And then the people came. I said, yes, it's already here. Here you are. That was very frightening. And not fair at all. Next. Well, we wanted to figure out some particular day in which the shadow would come together and be beautiful. And we decided it should neither be Mac's birthday nor my birthday. We're unfortunately not the same day. So something else. So we decided we would celebrate the victory over the snake of all knowledge. That is the crux of this story. When this boy has the snake by the throat and realizes that he has knowledge in this. Changed his whole career, right? Well, what did that really mean? Well, we talked about it. We decided we were on a college campus here. We wouldn't do a celebratory thing. It had to be about the victory over the snake of all knowledge. What would be the most appropriate time of the year to choose?
Spring break.
No, that's a different kind of celebration, not about knowledge. Anybody online? No, do we even have people online? Yes, we do. Chris, do you know?
Springtime.
Springtime. Okay. Could you be a little more specific? Spring break has already been taken and that's wrong.
Situation.
No, it would be around Easter.
Now, lots of people don't think Easter is the right holiday. So we decided it would be graduation day, when 1/4 of the people on the campus would be really celebrating their personal victory over the snake of knowledge. They had finally done something and they were getting recognized for having learned some knowledge in a big way. So that year, graduation day was May 24th. We said, okay, May 24th it is. Now, realizing, of course, the graduation does whizzle around a bit. It's usually end of May, and that would be close enough. And if we had the sculpture and it was beautiful and doing something special, on graduation day, people could come by in their caps and gowns, get their picture taken with it. It would be really, really cool. And then soon after that, they moved graduation to other places. So whatever. MetLife Stadium is a little far. Okay, next. So we decided on a picture. So after this beautiful picture of a young man with his arms out, holding the tail of the snake on one side and the snake's head on the other side, looking at the snake's looking at him, and he's got the snake, right? This is the victory point. And then how to make it into a 3-dimensional sculpture. So the idea was then that you take the 2-dimensional picture, and we made a piece of cardboard, and you cut it out of cardboard. And then said, well, let's take whatever goes together and separate it in the other dimension. So for instance, the man has 2 legs. You cut off both legs. And we had sort of a 1 cubic volume of space to put the aluminum and metal in. So you put 1 leg at the bottom and the other leg at the top, such that if the sun shone in the right day, it would come and the 2 legs would be next to each other. If the legs are up here and the sun shines sideways, the legs are way far apart. It doesn't look like a person. All right, so separated the legs. So on this picture on the left-hand side, the legs are going off to the left. There's 1 at the top and 1 at the bottom. Those things there are the legs of the man. Not anywhere near each other unless the sun shines in the right direction. On the right-hand side, we have a picture that has the man's head in the middle. The ball of his head is part of it, and then his nose and his chin are at different places along that to get projected together. And then on the right, I like the snake. Can we move the people away? Shrink them at all?
Yep, okay, good, but losing the mouse again.
Well, I don't know. Never mind. So this one over here, there we go, has part of the snake's face is that curvy thing. And then over here is another one. And one of that is his mouth and the other is his fangs. Fangs in his mouth, or they're somewhere else. And then one of the big questions that I could not solve, but Mac solved it, was how do you make the snake 3-dimensional? I mean, it's just a line. So I have this line that goes along. Here's the man's legs, here's the snake's face. The snake itself is just a single line. How do you expand that? Well, you get coloring. So this mesh over here. I thought these were nice pictures of just different views of the sculpture, and I especially like the one on the right, where you're standing right under it and the sun is obscured by the man's head, but you can see a little bit of the three-dimensionality of the rest of the sculpture. Next. Now we did it first in cardboard, then we made it in wood, and that was full-sized. So it's 6 feet across. The boy's wingspan is 6 feet. Your size. Mac had built this in his studio in New York, and I went in and he had a huge A-frame ladder, and I climbed up there and I had a spotlight and had to move it for different parts of the thing so we could see if that looked good on the floor. Because we couldn't put it infinitely far away, and therefore only had to do parts of it at a time. That was kind of scary, but I did it.
Yeah.
He sent the whole thing off, the plans, to a forge in Philadelphia, where they made it out of aluminum.
Actually, it was made in the art department.
Made in the art department. Oh, I got that all wrong.
Yeah, no, I had an assistant from Philadelphia. He actually slept over.
I just sleep in the building.
He slept in the studio.
Oh, cool.
Wow. That's dedication.
And then we did the surveying, which I told you about with the red paint. They poured the concrete footings, they installed the armature, and eventually a crane came and lifted the whole big sculpture thingy up into the armature. And it fit into slots. So there were slots, and then the slots had horizontal play in them. And we had a student up there on an A-frame ladder, and we counted out till noon, and then he scooched a little bit, tightened it down, and then it rusted that way, so it will never move again. So we have one time to make the final adjustment. I thought that was really cool. I'm glad I was not the student on that letter. Anyway, next. So then comes the interesting part. We chose one day, May 24th, but because the way the sky works, that automatically chooses a second day for you, which turns out to be May 17th. And this is shown in this analemma, which is like a figure 8 shaped thing. This picture was by Dennis Chico, 1970s, maybe. He was one of the leaders of Sky and Telescope magazine. This picture he took with a film camera in his basement window, looking up at the sky. It took a picture once a week, I think Saturday morning at 8 o'clock in the morning, something like that, for a very short period of time. And all of these dots are on the same piece of film. Only one piece of film was used. And the first time he did it, he had miscalculated. And part of the oval, the bottom one, was obstructed by the house next door. Started over and did it again for a whole another year, and got this picture, which is on the cover of the magazine. We should be happy for electronic cameras, yes, Donna? Yes. Okay. So this shows the position of the sun at different times during the year. So at the lower right, that's the lowest the sun ever gets in altitude, and that's December, the solstice in December. And then up at the upper left is where the sun is at the highest point, so that's in June 21st. And then it goes back and forth. The width of the ovals, the width of the figure, is because the Earth speeds up and slows down in its orbit just a little bit. And so they taken at the same time, and so they would show that. So we're looking for May 24. So June is up at the top. May it's like a month from May to June in the 20s. So it's just down a few of those dots down here. And you see that if you're that altitude for the sun, there's two branches. So there's this one and that one. So that other one is the other day, May day, or the July day. We chose May, and you get July for free. Cool, get it for free. Nothing particular happening, except it's just time to get to that. Next. If So then we had it arranged so that the barrels of those tubes all pointed where the sun would be at noon on the May day. No, yes, May. And so if the sun is at some other, like lower angle, it shines this way, so you can see that the shadows off to the left, down here, this part here, part of the shadow in the winter time, way off the disk. Next. And then these are just picture taken at random times when the shadow is not centered on the disk. Sometimes it's off on the grass, sometimes it's just not quite centered. And the person doesn't look like a person much at all. It's really sensitive, and I think that's just one. Next. More things about timing. Look at this one on the right-hand side. Surely that's not a person with a snake. This one on the left-hand side is pretty nearly a person with a snake, but there are people sitting there eating their lunch. So you can't see it.
Well, I always thought of it, it became very Rorschach,
Pardon?
became like Rorschach.
It is a Rorschach test.
So
What do you see here?
and the disc was meant to look like a Chinese calligraphy pen, when it's
Ooh,
like that.
Chinese calligraphy.
Unfortunately, that school hasn't maintained it the way it should be. That stone should be sparkling white. Like a sheet of paper.
Where the rust.
Yeah, the rest of the armature falls there. Yeah, it should be washed away in the so slick that it washes away in the next rain.
They should be clean. I keep telling them it's gonna fall down. They don't do something soon. Yeah, I mean, the aluminum and steel are not a good combination. But we Teflon the connections. But it's gonna fall down. They haven't. I feel, it actually drives me crazy. I've talked to the school many, many times. They've done absolutely nothing. Been up there now for 30-odd years. Things cannot stand without any maintenance. Believe that these things support themselves. They don't. They have to be cleaned on a regular basis. The aluminum top part, you can believe it, when that went in, that was a mirror surface. Now it's the dribbles of rust going across it, it's going to eat it.
Go to the next one.
Yes, it's
Nice.
Here we go.
I wonder if Joe Marzullo could do
Yeah.
something about
Yeah, we should talk to him.
that. Yeah.
So this was in 2006. It still worked in 2006. That's 30 years later. Next. This was in 2010. Worked again. This is one of my groups from education grant. These people are allowed teaching now. Next. Here's one I like. Mike Peters took this one. This is a full-size human being lying in the shadow. She was a big girl and covered. I thought that was great. Next. Forgot to put the years on this one, but in fact, this one on the right-hand side, that's Prudence Jones, who spoke to us last month, and so this one was just this last year. Summertime. And so these two are after we moved from the library to cells, and you can see Richardson Hall in the background. And that one little tree is growing like crazy. Next. And so I exhort you to come and check it out. It's good for generally a whole week around May 24th and another whole week around July 17th. Parking is easier in the summer. But come and look at it. It is from noon or from 11:50 to 12:10. You can watch the shadow sweep across the disk, looking best in the middle and then getting reversed. So cool. Yeah. Okay, thank you. Next.
Brava, Mary Lou. Brava, brava, brava.